Well, hello everyone. How are you guys doing? Good. I'm glad. I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming you after lunch. That's always an interesting thing. And by the way, if you actually found this room, I know you are committed, right? So there is no other way to find this room, apparently. So my name is Jitesh Rahadgi. Yes, I'm the guy with a very difficult first name and a very difficult last name. I am not going to ask you to spell or remember it. But what I will ask you to remember is that today we have some amazing sessions from some amazing speakers. We have two. Originally, there were going to be three sessions which were going to be presented. Unfortunately, because of a family emergency, one of our speakers could not make it. He was here, and then he had to leave. So that's a challenge, but we are Pega. We are built for change, right? So we changed our agenda, and what we are going to do, just from a logistical perspective, is once we are done with this amazing session, which is going to happen right now, immediately after me, we are then going to go to Beacon 1, all of us, and our final session from Sanofi would actually be in Beacon 1. So that's a little bit of a minor logistical challenge. Actually, that has a much better signage anyway, so I think we'll probably have more people there. With that, I really want to take the time to thank Celgene, Kevin White, and Shilpa Patel, who are both here to talk about what the amazing stuff they have done with patient safety. Celgene is a very unique company. They have a very unique product, but they have to have a program for safety around that product. It saves life, but it can also create some complications for people who should not be taking it. So we would actually talk about that program and what Celgene has done to make sure patient safety remains the top of mind for everyone in this session. So with that, please give a warm welcome to Kevin White and Shilpa Patel.
Good afternoon. Thank you for attending the session. Thank you for the nice introduction. So we have a rather unique topic to talk about from a Celgene perspective. One, we are from Celgene, and yes, we've been acquired from BMS, so sometime probably by the end of the year we'll be part of BMS. I have seen the BMS version of our mission and vision, and it looks awfully similar. So the idea here is innovative therapies is highlighted in this particular chart. And but innovation just doesn't limit itself to the therapy side. Celgene has been, and we expect to fully continue this with BMS. I know they're excited about this. A desire to be innovative in everything that we do, including from an operational perspective. And I would argue that many of the things that we've done in our capabilities to support patient safety, we've been able to bring a lot of innovation, and Pega has been a great partner in accomplishing that. There we go, okay. I think I'll use this. So how many out there are familiar with REMS programs in the life science industry? Great, a fair amount. So that's what we do for a living with Celgene. I've just simply summarized the FDA's perspective on REMS programs, where there's three types. So the FDA will approve a product and approve the package insert and the materials for that, but in some cases they decide additional risk mitigation is required. The simplest one may be providing patients with additional materials. Another version is providing prescribers with materials, additional educational materials. And then the most difficult one is the ETASU side, ETASU standing for Elements to a Safe Use, and that creates activities that are required by prescribers, patients, pharmacists, and the manufacturer to complete to ensure that product is safely used in the marketplace. This is our set of programs and what we need to accomplish. So phthalimid, and the generic is thalidomide, is the product with a dark history starting back in the 50s and 60s, went off the market, came back, and these products are used to primarily treat multiple myeloma. But when they came back to the marketplace, Celgene made significant and earnest commitments to patient advocacy groups, as well as healthcare authorities to ensure that our products would be safely used. And from there, these programs are created that ensure proper education and a set of activities occur, and those activities occur for every prescription written. So I call this the breadcrumb chart, and really this is the set of tasks that need to be performed. And if you kind of drew a line from prescriber, patient, and pharmacist across through them, the items listed below it are what we have to perform inside Celgene and with our stakeholders, prescribers, patients, pharmacies, to complete a REMS, set of REMS tasks for each prescription. The items above the line would be performed amongst those external stakeholders. So really what it means is every prescriber, every pharmacist is enrolled and certified, which means they've been trained. For every prescription, an acknowledgement of safe use occurs. It's expressed as a survey the prescriber completes and the patient completes for every RX. There are limitations on time frames and volume of product in each prescription. And then third, the pharmacy confirms, acknowledges safe use between the pharmacy talking to the patient. So 3 times we're working to ensure safe use for every prescription. We provide an authorization number that is required to be written on every prescription form, and that authorization is unique and only good for that particular RX. And then for every prescription that's filled by the pharmacy, they check with the manufacturer, with Celgene, to ensure that all of the rules have been met, all the criteria have been met, to ensure that the product can be properly dispensed, knowing that all of the activities and tasks were completed. That simple chart, relatively simple chart, has 25,000 business rules behind it in our system. So there's a lot of, if the moon is blue and it's Tuesday, those rules need to be followed. This is a, sorry, I can't quite coordinate what's on my screen and that screen, but this is a logical overview of the system technology. So one, we focus on our external stakeholders, which are listed above there. And then we have an internal stakeholder that we define as our customer care function. So we have automated solutions for all of these tasks, but if anyone, and especially a patient, wishes to talk to a human to complete their activities, we will make sure they are able to talk to a human with outstanding service levels. So Pega provides the platform to support all of this. And you can tell that we have several different channels, and I guess maybe the terminology is going to change to micro journey based on Alan's speech this morning, but different ways to interact with all of our stakeholders. Fundamental to that is underneath that is a set of services that connect all those channels to the brain, to Pega Brain, and the same service is used no matter what channel is used by the stakeholder. So they can do the same thing in an IVR as they can do in a portal for the most part. There's some limitations, but we can start transactions in one, finish in another channel. So those capabilities exist, and really the secret sauce there is making sure that the services that we have that connect these channels to the Pega Brain are in place. And yes, we do rely on Pega to help us in developing those services. One thing I would tell you, and actually my partner in crime, Shilpa Patel, who's our technology lead, will talk a little bit about it. A couple years ago when I drew this picture, we were excited to be able to draw something about apps. And we'll talk a little bit about a first-in-class app that we're working on it. But over the last few months, we would begin to tell you that really we probably don't want to have apps, because anyone that's dealt with Apple and Google on a regular basis for apps would recognize that there's some challenges there. And oftentimes when we have to roll things out, we have time deadlines dictated by the FDA. And we have to plan for the extra time it takes for Apple's review, for Google's review. So our idea in the future is that it would be a lot better to build a portal capability that was responsive to all types of equipment used, no matter what it is. But that means that we would be able to take that portal and represent it in a very effective way on a smartphone or mobile app. So I think in the future, we'd like to be able to merge those portals and those apps into really one construct and make them highly responsive. Below that is the Pega Brain, which is, we've affectionately called that since the beginning. I don't know if that's a common term, but now, this is kind of our journey with Pega. When I drew this, or put the slide together, I didn't draw the road, I got it off of iStock, but the long and winding road by the Beatles kept on playing in my head, so that went on for 2 days. So feel free to think about it in your head as I explain this one. But back in 2009 is when we started. So we really cut our teeth with Pega in implementing the healthcare platform and applying it to a reasonably unique circumstances for what we have. It's not a CRM or something off the shelf or some more commodity-oriented application. While it uses a lot of components like workflow, call center, and portals, it is still fairly unique in how it works, as you can see from the breadcrumb chart. We worked hard to implement it and to then provide minor enhancements. It doesn't tell the full story of that, but we had a lot of little things going on as new submissions went in, changes to the requirements for our products went in. The program didn't change, but being able to handle new indications, as an example, was necessary to implement. And then in 2013, we implemented another product, Pomalist, which was the third product that was on that list, and we were able to harmonize, in working with the FDA, all the programs into one similar program. There's 3 separate programs, but they operate the same way. And that was actually a big achievement because it did bring efficiencies across the board for everyone. And then in 2017, we had ridden Pega 5.4 for 7 years. And I think we were near the end of the list, if not I think there was one book behind us about who had not upgraded. So we went through a major process. We did 2 things in that process. One, we considered an alternative, and that was the vendor whose name may not be mentioned, I guess, here, as an alternative. And certainly the switching cost was significant. But there was a lot of things about Pega that we'll chat about that made it really desirable to stay on the platform, invest in the upgrade. And that investment was critical because it launched our ability to implement a lot of new capabilities that are first in class for what we do, based on that Pega platform and through the use of Pega capabilities. So, over that 7 years, we grew a lot and Pega grew a lot. And we continued that partnership in 2017 because of that growth and that alignment with our capabilities. After that, we implemented or have been implementing several things. One is healthcare interoperability. So that's a big buzzword in the industry. I fall back to B2B because it's a lot easier to say than healthcare interoperability. But we've implemented a capability so that instead of pharmacies using our portal to complete their REMS activities, which is to be able to process a dispense and receive confirmation from us, we've been able to build a capability for our system to talk to their system on the back end, which means they can continue to work in whatever pharmacy management system they have, complete the REMS tasks and activities in their system and execute. And that's received positive reviews, and it's intuitive. Why? It's if they saved time, they saved effort. We've reduced potential errors and improved quality of the transaction because they're not now going back and forth between systems and transcribing, manually transcribing. So it's been a very big hit. We've rolled out a couple of pharmacies that were based on an FDA approval of our ability to pilot that capability. And then once we were able to provide the results back to the FDA, they said, oh yeah, please go ahead and implement this on a broader scale, which we're happy to do. So we have about 5 going on now, and we'll probably end up with about 5 every 6 months for the next 2 to 3 years. So critical in terms of interoperability. The other piece that we've been working on, and we'll have ready in Q1, we've actually built it, is connectivity with an EMR. So why can't the prescriber complete their transaction through their EMR? Now, EMRs aren't typically the easiest guys to work with. That might be a little bit of an understatement. But when you have clients, and when you start to think about the large institutions that are treating disease states like multiple myeloma, they can exert influence on the EMR to say, yes, we want to do this. We've built 2 capabilities to connect. One is the Smart on Fire solution, and that Epic and Cerner use. They use that and expect us to use that. And they represent a significant majority of our customer sets in the HEMONC space. And then we've also built just straightforward HL7 connectivity. So we feel like you name it, we can go do it. Of course, to do that requires a close working relationship with the commercial organization to make sure that we go out, work with the customers, are successful in delivery, because I know who would shoot me first if we're not on the commercial side. But so we work through that with them next, and we'll be piloting this in Q1 of next year to implement that, and we expect that to be very well received. And as prescriber institutions see the value of that, we expect that uptake will start to have the same kind of curve that we've seen on the pharmacy management side. Another item that we've done is built a application, a app for use on iOS and Android devices that will allow the patient to complete the patient survey. So if you remember the breadcrumb chart, for each prescription, the patient must acknowledge, yes, I understand the conditions for using this product and how it has to be used safely. And they will be able to complete that on the app. And then we can also communicate better with them in terms of notifications, heads up, alerts, those kinds of things. That'll be going out Monday for the first pilot group, again approved by the FDA. But we fully expect that we well received. We spent a year traveling amongst patient groups around the country, gaining their feedback, and literally 99% were supportive of the idea of this app. So those are things in terms of drive us towards innovation for our industry and for what we're doing, and again, based on Pega capabilities that we're leveraging to implement. So yes, it's been a long and winding road, but it's the ending of that song is not so good. This one is much better. So here we are working on the US REMS, and when you go into the international marketplace, instead of using the term REMS, they use the term risk management. So everywhere else in the world they say risk management, in the US we say REMS. We are now looking at how we can take or implement a global platform that can support individual country needs but gain some leverage out of shared capabilities. Because if we look at it, about 70–80% of what happens in the countries outside of the US that have a risk management program requiring some level of technology, not all countries do, but requiring some level of technology to support, there's 70–80% commonality. They do a lot of things the same. And then there's about the 20% that is a little bit different that we need to tailor for. So the solution, and I have a 4-year-old grandson now, so I'll be getting back into Legos shortly, was we can take the building blocks out of the US and build the capability from a global perspective. I think the 25,000 business rules will grow because it'll become more interesting with various countries, but we're using that same capability, and in the process of building that, we know we can accommodate the unique needs of the affiliates across the globe. So kind of cool. And then, oh, but wait, there's more. We have some new products in the pipeline, specifically CAR-T related, that will require a REMS ATASU program. And there are things that we can pull from this to reuse. So the actor names have changed, but the functionality of those actors performs the same thing that we're doing in IMIDs in our 3 products that we talked about in the US and global. So lots of reuse that's coming out of this Pega platform to meet a variety of business objectives. So really good news from that perspective, because our cost factor is going down significantly with that. Now, whenever I make a presentation on Pega and I get a senior management person asking me why Pega, this is my version of a situational layer cake. This extends this is my maximum capability to document this and then explain it. It's a New Jersey rainbow diner cake that you can use. And then it's funny. Everyone's familiar with the KISS, keep it simple, silly perspective. Well, for this, it's the business rules engine, silly. So that's my explanation. It works once or twice, and then they start wanting more information, which is when I turn it over to our technical guru, Shilpa Patel.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, you're gonna have to, this doesn't show that.
Okay.
Just take a quick glance.
So, hi, I'm Shilpa Patil, leading the delivery global risk management systems at Celgene. From a very appetizing, colorful cake to a less appetizing but highly technical cake, we are exploring the situational layer cake, which has been defined by Pega, and we heard about it earlier today in Alan's speech, and a couple of others mentioning the same as well. Of course, this is all about leveraging our US platform, as Kevin was mentioning earlier in one of those earlier slides, and how do we want to build it to meet the needs globally across different countries, across different regulations, and different volumes as well. So we are on the path. We have a wonderful group of architects, Pega architects, on this journey with us to help build this layer cake up from handling our framework of business rules, which would be core, standardizing our business rules, standardizing our tech stack as well, technology as well, while we design this. Just an example of how we would actually continue to build this is one of the critical components in risk management is enrollments. So anybody who has to start transacting with our systems needs to be enrolled in our program. And one of the entities is pharmacy. So for the pharmacies to be enrolled, there are a couple of business rules which have been layered up. Again, the enrollment piece varies based on the region, based on the regulatory needs across these regions. And that's how the enrollment piece will layer up, starting from the standardization foundation, and then going all the way up specific to the program and to the country regulations as well. So overall, it's been a very successful journey so far in terms of design and the technical aspects. And Pega is actually helping in a lot of ways to be able to connect those dots from a customer journey perspective itself. So another slide which I like, especially if I want to keep my conversation very short with my boss. It's a more techie slide, as you see, but again, this basically gives us a picture of where we are headed, what are the different components which we are targeting in terms of our global needs itself, and how everything remains customer focused. So it all starts and ends with the customer journey, And during this journey, what are the different components, what are the different channels which we need to take care of to be able to satisfy the needs of the customer. In our case, primarily it is the patient, prescribers, and the pharmacies across. So I'll not go into the details of each of these points, but just to one of Kevin's earlier points, responsive and adaptive. Yes, we know having apps in these app stores, they come with their own challenges, especially when it comes to our regulatory timelines. Keeping that in mind, our portals are going to be more responsive, more adaptive when it comes to satisfying different channels, different modes of consuming these applications. Next comes the localization and internationalization. Of course, when we say we are building a global platform, it is very important to keep in mind those aspects of localizations across the situational layer itself. So that is something which the team is working on. And there's a lot of standardization which can happen across the board and which should happen across the board for sustainability and for longevity and extensibility of the program and the product itself.
Go to the next one.
Yes, I mean, this is a very simple slide. Given the fact that we are utilizing Pega, we are going to Pega Cloud to meet our global needs. The global platform will be on our Pega Cloud as well.
The clock is ticking, so we'll run through these slides, which really just intended to provide some overview of how we work and what we think about. Look, our investment objectives, one, is we got to do what the program tells us to do. So the rules are defined in those programs, and there's a lot of work to make sure that happens. But after that, then, we're thinking about how do we reduce stakeholder burden? You know, we're asking those external stakeholders to do a lot, especially in a difficult disease and disease state. So whatever we can do to minimize their burden in executing those tasks, we can't soften the task or eliminate the task. It has to be done and done correctly. Whatever we can do is absolutely critical. And we've chosen to try and strive to be a leader in this particular topic in the industry. We believe it reflects our commitment to patient safety, and that that's where we want to drive to, be known for, and have that commitment seen. Our project demand is fluid. If we look at the portfolio at any point in time, there's about 25 projects across the globe that we need to work on. That creates, and Shilpa will mention a few things, but that creates a dilemma in terms of how do we build all this, run it through in a regulated, validated state, and implement it. So we've been trying to come up with hopefully some creative solutions and a lot of discussion on how we can maintain that validated state and thinking about it in a continuous manner instead of serial, lining the planes up at the airport to land. From a resource perspective, 3-4 years ago, we were doing it by project. I probably had 12, 13 projects. And it got to the point where everybody hated me. The senior managers that had to sign off on the money, the finance guys that had to do their thing. I didn't like myself either. It was very difficult. So we really went to a process that we really created a program, resource boxed, and managed the money against that. And we can flex resources, but we ensure that we have a significant level of committed resources that are available at any point in time. We do leverage Pega for a lot of work. It's no one's forcing me to say this. We're very happy with the work that we've gotten from an architectural perspective, especially as we think about going from US to global and adding more products. The architectural work's been excellent, and it's been really important then to ensuring efficient execution by the development side. Now, we do requirements. I know I heard the statement this morning that somebody hates requirements. In the regulated space, that's your traceability source. You got to start from there. So I don't see them going away real soon. So that becomes the other important piece that we work on. Learnings. standardize, standardize, standardize is, you've heard us, you can infer from what we've said about what we're doing. It makes a lot of sense. The more we can reuse, the cheaper things get, the faster we execute, and the more nimble we are in responding to regulatory demands that occur across the year.
So yes, as Kevin mentioned again, we need to keep up the pace. We cannot afford to go in a serial fashion, but again, being in a highly validated environment, regulated environment, keeping up the innovation pace as well as the timeline space can get sometimes challenging. And that's where the spirit of continuous improvement, continuous integration, continuous deployment comes into picture. Of course, it's not an overnight thing. As we all know, DevOps, where we break the wall between the software development and operations, it's not an overnight thing, but ultimately as an organization, we need to get there to be able to keep up the pace from a regulatory perspective as well as from an innovation perspective, to bridge the gap between business and technologists and come together for the continuous improvement to happen iteratively. And that's where we are headed, and we have made a lot of progress in that space, and we're going to only continue to improve there given our portfolio of programs, which now includes CAR-T, is only going to expand. So in short, that's what it is, our learnings, and we continue to learn. Fail forward is the culture we adopt, which means you fail fast, you accept your failures, learn fast from it, and get into the readjust mode sooner than later.
We do have a % limitation on fail forward, though. Finally, some outcomes. Obviously, the one I mentioned before, over 1 million patients have been treated under the program without a baby being born with congenital defects. So, we're being successful in that vein. Our service levels, we run 95% because when a patient calls, we want to be on that phone answering it for whatever they need to do, whatever they have to talk about. And then obviously you want excellent service for prescribers and pharmacists because they're trying to help the patient also. So, and transaction volume is 4 million-ish across that breadcrumb chart just in the US, probably 1 million-ish international, and we'll be up to probably 5 in the US shortly. So let me stop there because it says 0 and we're out of time. And they told me they would grab us and take us off the stage. But so there's no time for questions apparently, but happy to see you in the cocktail hour, our favorite hour, for any questions you might have. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Shilpa. I really appreciate it.